All right, we're gonna get started. Just really quickly, we're gonna do a little bit of setup for those of you who did not attend workshop 3. If you did, that's fine. You don't. We're just gonna run through some setup really quickly. So if you go to vhl.inc/workshops or workshop, that'll take you straight to our setup code for workshop 4. So if you already have code from workshop 3, you don't need to do this. But for those of you who are just joining us, make sure that you're cloning this repo right here. Open your terminal. Go to whatever directory you need to do. So I'm just going to go desktop, and then I'm going to git and then clone, and then I'm going to clone that repository. All right. So now if you open VS Code, I'm just going to drag it in a new window to show you. All right. I'm just going to take this folder here and I'm just going to drag it in, or you could just go file, open, and then wherever the folder is, you can select it. Oh, oops, file, open folder, there we go. And then you can go to wherever this folder is and then just click open. All right, and then really quickly, for those of you who didn't attend, who need to set up Firebase, you'll see this Firebase JS file. You'll see that you need to put your Firebase configuration. So how you do that is you go to firebase.google.com, go to the console here, create a project, to-do list, la la la. You can improve their analytics if you want. It'll take a second. All right, cool. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna enable web. I'll just call it to-do list. Register. And then right here, you'll see this JSON right here, or not JSON, JavaScript object right here. So you're gonna have to copy like all of this, and then paste it into your config. If you've already done this, you don't need to follow along. So just paste it there. And then when you're done with that, we're going to have to add authentication. Get started.
Google.
Yeah, enable Google. What the heck? Oh, nice. Thank you, Adi. Yeah, add the project support email, save it. Take a second. And then Firestore database. You're gonna have to create a database in test mode. This is really important that you do in test mode, not production mode. Go next. That's fine. And then this will take a second, and then you'll be all caught up with us. And then if you have any questions, just raise your hand. We have Mr. Richard and Kyle and Rohit over there who are definitely willing to help.
Wait, do you want help? Yes. Yeah. Do you want to?
Could you repeat the authentication?
Yeah. So just under this build, you click here and authentication.
It's the sidebar.
Yeah.
We should have a laser pointer.
Do we have to start collection? I forgot. No, right?
No,
It does it
nothing,
itself.
nothing.
Okay, cool.
All right. I'm gonna open VS Code to the build where we were before.
Yeah. And then you can open the integrated terminal by right-clicking here and saying open integrated terminal.
This
And
is from last time.
it's not.
Just give me the icon. I'll start authentication from wherever we were last time.
Yeah.
All right. We started authentication last time, but we didn't get to finish it. So I'm gonna quickly look if we have that stuff. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. I'll wait a second just so everyone's up to speed with what we did. Serial list. All right, so let's begin. So as you can see in app.js, we had put in the stuff where like, if we were logged in, then it shows us the list component, which has the person's items. And if we're not logged in, then it shows us the login component, which we were going to begin writing. So what do we want from our login component? Well, the one thing we want is for the person to have a way to log in and not see any of the rest of the stuff. So let's see how we can like log in using Google. So yeah, we have the login file that we just created at the very end of the workshop in components. And now we're going to make the component, right? So first off, let's do some imports. So we want the methods that the library we installed, React Firebase hooks, provided to us for us to be able to easily authenticate with Google. So I'm going to do Google auth provider from, let me disable Copilot. Yeah. We want to do this from Firebase auth. What else do we want? Well, we want the auth object itself, the one whose state we're tracking from the Firebase variable we defined. So this should be two levels up. Yeah, let me just double check. Okay, yeah, there we go. Export auth. So we want this basically. So back to login. Yeah. Now we can define a provider, which is const provider equals to Google auth provider. So far, so good. Right. Now we can start making our components. So I do const login, that nice little arrow function. Yeah, I'll speak louder. Okay, so arrow function for the login component. Okay, and now let's make a method that helps us to sign in with Google, right? So I'm going to just call it sign in with Google. So const sign in with Google. Now, since this will be making a web request, we want this to happen asynchronously, so we're not backed up by Google being slow or something, right? We still want our code to be executing while we're waiting for this to happen. So I add like an async here to mark this as an async function. And now, what we want to do is we want to sign in using a pop-up. So let's see how to do that. I'm going to open Chrome real quick. Firebase sign in with pop-up React. I don't know, or something should turn up. There is that worm. Let's see. So we already did this stuff. Okay, there we go. So it has a sign in with pop-up method that we can just call on. So let's go back to VS Code. Which one is it? Okay, what's this one? So we adjust our import up top there to have a sign in with pop-up method. Cool. And now we can simply just call that in our sign in with Google method. So I go sign in with pop-up and then pass in the auth object to it, pass in the provider to it, which is simply the Google auth provider saying, oh, wait, since we want to have an instance of the Google auth provider, instead of just having this, we should probably do like new, and then have the parentheses here. So now it's an instance of the Google I've provided some of the method there. And we pass it to our sign with pop-up. And then we will get back a result. So we probably want to do something with it. I think what we can do for now is basically this, because this will sign the person into our application with Google. We probably want to see what information about the person do we get from Google, so we can sort of like do something based on that to be displayed somewhere. So I'm going to do a then, which executes once this has happened, and then inside the then, do something with the result. So result, let me collapse the sidebar for now. Cool. Then with the result, let's just log it maybe. So we can do const user just to result dot user. Now, how do I know this, that there will be a user object? So this is from the documentation as well. Because if you look here, then they do the same thing here in the part that I've highlighted. So just following the documentation, nothing we haven't seen before. And then I'm just gonna log this. So console.log user. And this will hopefully enable us to see that what all properties the user object has. So I'm gonna, looks like I'm not closing something. Okay, there we go. And then we want to do some stuff with this component, like show the user a button, which the button when clicked has this pop-up appear so the person can see this happening. Okay, so that should be fine. Let's do return. You can make it div, honestly. Div. And then inside the div, just have a button. And then when this button is clicked, so I'm going to do the on click on this button. And we just want to call our sign in with Google thing here, so the person gets signed in. So just type it out. Sign in with Google. Cool. And now we want to export this login component so the other file can import it where we already did that. So let's do export default, because this is the only thing this file is exporting. So anytime someone imports this file, we just want the export by default to just be login. So export default login. Cool. Now let's make sure everything is okay in app.js. This imports login. Okay. So now we can try running our application. So let me try that right now. Save the Firebase file. Yes. npm start. Oh no, something is wrong. What? Huh? Oh, I see. I thought we installed the stuff last week, Kevin.
I just focus for off.
No worries. Yeah, we're just waiting for this to start. But is everyone caught up to this stage? You probably did not need to start this, so you should have some results somewhere. So we'll see. npm start.
Make sure you're in the to-do list, right?
I am in the to-do list directory. Okay, let's open the console so if we can see something going. It is loading. React app, and is a button. Wait, for some reason the button is super small, but it is there. And I'm gonna sign in with Kevin's Gmail. Whoa. And it signs us in, and this to-do list looks very much different than what we had last week. So I see someone's at work with the CSS. And let's add something. Make to-do list more beautiful. Wow.
Just more beautiful.
Yeah. The next thing we will be doing is sort of like displaying to the user once they're logged in. And the other thing you want to do now that we have signed in is sort of like sign out, right? That's the next thing you need. Kyle and Richard, how's it looking? Yes, we can. And then we can go ahead. Okay, okay. Okay, in that case, since we added the console log, let's look at what the console log got for us, right? So if I go in my console log here, this field, let's try expanding this. Okay, and now we have Kevin's personal information. Congratulations. Kevin Jin, email, verified true, phone number, and no phone number. There's an image though, I'm not gonna go on that though. But the good thing is that based off this information that we know we have access to, we can sort of display to the person that, hey, you are logged in. This is the name and email we have of you that is logged in. So let's go do that. So now this happens when we display the list component. So let's go back to the list component. I'm gonna import the same auth stuff in list so that we have access to that. So I'm gonna do, first I'm gonna import database from, do we have database from Firebase? Okay, let's do that as well then. So I'm gonna import auth from, oh, there it is. I'll just start auth here then. So now we import DB and we also import auth. And then we're gonna get the use auth state hook that we have been using to capture the database. So it should be this. Yeah, I'll give you a second to type that out. What else do we need? Yeah, we need to get the sign out stuff. So I'm gonna get the sign out method from Firebase once again. So import sign out, and it is from Firebase /auth. VS Code should be auto-completing this for you as well. So feel free to just do that. And now I think we can go ahead and add the stuff. So we go all the way down. I guess we can add something before to-do list. So I'm just gonna first get this stuff from the users. I'm gonna do, I like using marquees a lot, so I'm gonna add a marquee. I'm gonna say signed in as, and then we can display, do something like user dot user dot display name, and then also maybe display the email. So we saw the fields we saw these fields in the user object of the console log. So then we know we have access to these. So then I'm just going to do user.email. Now we just need to make sure that we get this user object from the imports that we made. So I'm going to go up top and add this right where we do all our other state caching stuff. So I'm going to do const user equals to use auth state, and then pass our auth object to it. Then save this. Similarly, when the user is logged in, we want to have that sign out component, right? So let's do that as well. We can display that right below the marquee we have. So I'm going to do close the line here, then do a button on click. So now the thing is, I could directly write sign out here, right? I could do like sign out. And then since this is a function that we're going to be calling, I'm going to do sign out auth, right? But this is wrong because this function will get executed every time the page is loaded. So we will be signed out as soon as the page loads. We don't want that to happen. We only want it to like sign us out when we click on it. So I'm going to make this an anonymous function so that the function is executed when we click. So like lazy evaluation. So an anonymous function, and then that should be fine. I'm going to wrap it in curly braces for good style. And looks like, yeah. And then I'm going to close that. There we go. Control S to save, and then back here, then preload. And there is a button, but it's super small because I think we're missing some CSS styling. So let's go back and add the classes, honestly. Let's see what the other button has for its class. And I don't think it has anything, it's just inside the component. So I'm just gonna copy this button code and marquee, honestly. Wait, I don't know why this is. Okay, I'm gonna copy the stuff and put it inside the header and hope it fixes something. Okay, refresh. That didn't do anything, but we have this button now, and I'm gonna click on this button. Oh no. And it does sign us out, and I can sign back in, clicking on the very small buttons.
Love the very small buttons.
I don't see, oh, and there's our marquee. So you can see here, this looks good. So you should probably be seeing your own name and email instead of Kevin's name and email. And that completes authentication. So let me know if this doesn't work for you. And we can send someone over to help. Richard. Huh? Yeah, I can show you the imports 1 second. Yeah. So we added the auth thing from wherever you import DB from. That might be database in your case because some people have database and not Firebase. Because we changed that. And then we get use auth state from React Firebase hooks /auth. And then we get the sign out method from Firebase auth. That is the 3 imports we're making. Then the other changes are we have this now. We get the user object from the hook. So this part. And then finally, we have some stuff completely at the bottom in our return statement for the component. So we add the marquee that shows us user's display name and email. And we have the button that on clicking signs us out. So basically 3 changes: imports, getting the user object, and then modifying our component to sign us out. That's it. Do you want to see why the buttons are super small now?
What?
The buttons are super. I can give it a value. What do you want?
It doesn't have a value, it doesn't like.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should give our buttons values so the CSS behaves nicely. So the value on this one can be, what should you want the value to be? Logout. Log. Where? Up or down? What exactly do you want to see? Imports on login or imports on list?
He just needs to provide.
Okay.
Just make the completed code public.
Oh, I see. Okay. If I'm gonna catch up on this, yeah, these are the 2 imports we got.
Sorry, also you need equal sign on your button.
Yeah. And we will also modify the button and yeah, I probably should not do that.
Did you send that to me on Slack?
You know what?
Kevin can do that for you, yeah. And then we're gonna give a value to the other button we had just so it behaves nicely too. So button value equals to, oh, I guess this is the sign out button. That was the sign in button. So I'm gonna go back and change that.
Yeah, you sent that to me on Slack.
This is sign in.
Yeah. I'm just
Okay.
gonna make the completed code public. Just
And now if you refresh, it is still small, so something is not working. Yes, 1 second.
He's trying to catch up, like, right now. So
Which,
just real long.
okay. So is authentication working for everyone then? Gonna take off. Yeah. The buttons are still not working, so you should see why they're small.
all right. So now we get to do the fun stuff. We get to do calendars, or not calendars, I'm sorry. We're gonna actually be able to pull assignments from Brightspace. So essentially what I kind of think of when I want to build something like this is just like, I want to have some sort of button here where I can add the link to my calendar. And then I want like another button where I can actually click it and then it'll actually sync it with Brightspace. So with that in mind, let's actually create those two buttons. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go on my list.js. I'm going to create the first button. So input type equals button. Value equals, let's say, get Brightspace link or something. So this is going to be the actual link to our calendar. All right. And then the second button, I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste it down here. And I'm going to change this value to sync calendar. So now if I save this, I got two new buttons here. I get Brightspace link and I have sync calendar. So one thing that I really want to do is I want to create a pop-up every time I click this button where I can put my link to my calendar. And the CSS for that is pretty complicated, simply because we have to like gray everything out and then we have to actually have our pop-ups. So we're going to just use the library once again. Thank you, Google. React responsive modal, which will create this little modal window for us. Make sure that you also look this library up. Why are they always gone? They just don't show up on Chrome. Interesting. Okay. So we see that the package name itself is React responsive modal, and I can npm install it like this. So I'm going to run npm install React responsive modals. So if I go here, I can open a new terminal by clicking this plus sign right here, or I could just like stop this process. But I'm just gonna actually I'm just gonna stop it just to be safe. So Control C to stop whatever's in your terminal, and I'm gonna run npm install React responsive -modal. Yeah. So if I run that, give it a second, this will be a library that we can actually use for a modal. So if you think about like this modal, this pop-up, there are two states that can happen. The first is it being shown? And the second is, yeah, it is being shown. So for example, when I click this button right here, I want to change the state so that it shows the modal. And then when I click out of this modal, I want to change the state so that the modal is no longer being displayed. So with that in mind, let's create a new state up here. So we're going to say let open set open will be our function, and we'll use the state of false. So what this means is that when we're actually on the screen right now, we don't see the modal show up. All right. So now I actually want to import that library. So now I actually want to get that component. So if I look in the documentation, you'll see that I can import the modal like this. So I import, I destructure their objects, and I get the modal from it, from this library. So I'm going to do that right up here. You can just copy and paste this line. Actually, I will copy and paste this line because I don't want to type all this. So if I copy and paste the styling that they give us, same thing with the calendar, they provide a styling here, and I copy and paste the modal. And I go over here and I paste them both down. Then I have this new modal component that I can use. So if I go down here, generally what I like to do with modals is I like to just put them at the very, very bottom of the actual component itself. So remember that, we are only returning one component. So this div right here is that component that we're returning, and then these are just some children components. So make sure that my modal is within my div. And modal takes a couple props. So if we look here, The first one is the open, right? It controls the state of whether the pop-up is open. So I'm going to say open equals, and then because it's JavaScript, we need these curlies, and we'll say open. So this is our actual React state up here, right here. All right. So we see that our modal has another event called onClose. So whenever we close this modal, this function will be called. So onClose, we'll create a new function called like save link, right? Because we want to actually save this link when we're done. I'm going to close that component right there, and you'll see that obviously React is not happy. Not React, VS Code is not happy because save link is not defined. And that's because we actually have to write that function, right? So if I go function, just where all my function calls are, and I say save link, I open my curlies and I say set open to close, right? So I'm going to set open to false. So this means I'm actually closing the link. Well, that begs the, or I'm actually closing the window. So I actually have to write another function called open modal, or whatever you want to call it. And this will actually set open to true. So this is us actually opening the window. So if I go down here, and I go to this get Brightspace link, whenever I click this, so on click, I want to call this function open our modal. And in our modal, let's see what they do. They just put a good old H2. I'm going to use this center thing right here, which is going to center our modal. So I'm going to say center. And you'll see that this center doesn't have like a center equals true or something. That's because if you just put the name down, it implies true. Just because React is all, or JavaScript is all about, writing really quick code. So I'm just going to write like a H2 or H1 or whatever you want that says place Brightspace link here or something. All right, so if I save this and I go over here and I click on this, you'll see that nothing happens because this isn't started. Yeah, sorry. So I actually need the npm start. Give it a second. All right, please work. Thank you. So you'll see that when I click this, it opens our pop-up, and then I can close it by just clicking out or clicking this X right here. All right, so now we actually want the link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say input. I'm going to do exactly what we've done with our previous text. If I look right here, right, we have this input text right here. You know what? I'm just going to copy this and paste it. I don't want to type a lot because we will be typing a lot. And I'm just going to paste it within the modal. All right, and obviously we're not dealing with titles. We need to create a new state containing our link. So if I go up here and I say let link set link, and the state for this is just going to be empty, an empty string. So this will actually contain the link of the Brightspace calendar that we're using. All right. So now I'm just going to put this value into link. And then when I change this state, I'm going to say set link to the event target value. Because we have this new state that actually has the link there. So if I save this, I can now write something here. And when I go back, thank you, Zoom. The state is still saved right here. So now it begs the question, actually, where do we get this Brightspace link? So if you actually go on Brightspace, Brightspace has this cool feature, please no duo. Thank you. Where if you go to calendar on the top left over here, you can go to settings and you can say enable calendar feeds right here. Are we all there? Cool. So if I save that, I can actually subscribe to this calendar. So if I click on subscribe, it'll give me this link right here. So just keep this window open and keep that in mind while we move along here. So every time I close this modal, I want to actually save this Brightspace link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my onClose function, right? So where is it? All right, hello, save link. All right. So if we're going to do this, I just want to show you really quickly. You don't need to follow me along with me here, what we're actually doing. So if I refresh this, you'll see we have tasks. All right, cool. So essentially what I want to do now, I'm not sure if it's going to work, but we're all here to give it a shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, thank you, Sam or Adi. I'm going to use the setDoc function, which we've imported here. Where am I? And then in save link, I'm going to say await, and I'm going to set the doc to a doc, and this doc will contain, or the path to this doc will be our database, which is DB, right? We're going to create a new collection called users, and then I'm going to say the users UID. The problem is I don't think this saves to the user's UID. You know what? It's fine. And then here I'm going to actually add the object of whatever we're going to use. So I'm going to create like a parameter. I'm going to call it like calendar URL. And it's going to be the calendar link. So our calendar link is just link. Cool. Okay, speed up. This function obviously needs to be asynchronous because we're using the await word keyword. So we're actually going to have to make a request to Google to actually set our doc. If I save this, it should work, please. All right, so if I say, hello, add, refresh, works. All right, cool. So now in the Brightspace link, I'm actually going to put my Brightspace link. So if I go here, I copy this link that they've given us and I paste it here. And whenever I click out, it should save. Let's see if it actually did. Cool, it's not complaining, which means it saved. I hope. I refresh here. There we go. Cool. So now you'll see that every user has this new field called calendar URL. All right. So now whenever I refresh the page, you'll see that obviously our Brightspace link isn't saved, right? And that's because we actually have to get it from the doc whenever we mount this component. In other words, whenever this component is loaded on our screen. And as we've done before, we had get docs here where we actually got all of our to-do list items. So I'm also going to grab this link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say get doc because we're getting the specific doc about a user. All right. So we're going to go. We're going to create a query based on this doc. So it's going to be our DB. It's going to be in the user's path, and it's going to be based on our user's unique ID. All right. And after we get this, after we actually successfully get this link, this get doc is going to return that actual user. So I'm going to create a function here that passes in the user. I'll make it an arrow function. And then I'm going to actually set this link. So I'm going to set the link to the user, the data of the user, exactly like we did with task.data, except we're not dealing with multiple docs. We're dealing with a singular doc. So we don't need that for each loop. And then I'm going to say .calendar URL because that's the specific parameter from the user that we want. That being said, let's see if this works. So if I refresh the page now and I go into Brightspace link, yeah, voila, we have our link here. So now it's saved. All right, and now we're actually going to sync the calendar. So this involves a couple things. So the first thing is that if I actually were to click on this, or if I were to actually go to this link, you'll see that it downloads a calendar file called like an ICS file. And essentially, we want to take this ICS file and we actually want to convert it into Python. And thankfully, our good friend Nasala actually wrote us a worker for that. We're not going to cover exactly how to do that because that's beyond the scope of this workshop. I don't know how to do it. You don't need to know how to do it. But if I go to vhl.inc/workshop, I have the source code for that specific thing written in Python right here, and Sam can explain it a bit.
Yeah, so the basic idea here is that we're trying to pull data from Brightspace from this, location that's far off somewhere else. But the big issue we have is that it's in a format that's different from the one we've had. And converting data between these two formats is a little bit messy. The details of making that request are a little bit complicated. So this kind of, while you're still gonna have the same, zoom in a little bit. While we're still gonna have the same sort of process, this is exactly what you would do if you were actually just using the Brightspace link directly. We've just abstracted it away and made it a little bit simpler for convenience sake. But this is exactly the same thing you would do pulling data from any other source. Basically what we do here is we just add a bunch of headers. We configure the cores access. All this stuff right here basically just deals with making the request nicer to where all you have to do is pass in a URL to the request. Then we have this part right here, which is going to do the converting between the data types, like I said. So as you can see, basically we get the data back from Brightspace in a very messy format. And we just have a series of operations here that's going to parse through that data and get it to a nice format that our application's ready to use. And that way, as soon as you pass the URL, it's just going to give you back a bunch of nice data that you can use for your to-do list.
All right. All right, cool. Thank you. So essentially, we need to actually get this this worker somewhere on the internet. So if I go to workshop setup, you'll see that the link is right here. And it takes in this parameter. So this question mark, if you've ever seen it on a URL, is called the parameters. So the parameter here is URL and it's equal to the Brightspace URL that we're actually going to use. So if I copy this and I go up here, I'm going to create this constant called worker link. And I'm just going to paste a link there just so I can actually use it. So this is already in the code if you've cloned it, but if not, just go to vhl.inc/workshops, copy that link, and then create some sort of constant that contains that link so we can actually use it. Cool. So let me show you actually what this link does. So if I were to paste it here and I were to paste in my calendar link, just in Chrome, which is like a simple GET request for an API. Let's see. Hold on, where am I? Here. Copy this. You don't need to follow me along here. I'm just going to show you. If I were to paste that, hit enter, it's going to take a second, but it's going to return this object that contains all the assignments I have left. And it has a name field and a time field. So name, time, a lot of behavioral science work. digital systems, good times. All right. So, oh yeah, really quickly, you'll notice that this button here is like really small. That's simply because it doesn't have any text in it. So let's actually deal with that really quickly. So I'm just gonna look, where's the sign out? Generally, when you're dealing with such a large file, I usually like, I don't like just like scrolling through and actually like finding something. I just like searching for things like sign out, which is exactly what we need. So here's our button right here where we sign things out. And that should, oh, this needs to be an empty tag, that's all. Is that true? Nope. Sign out. See if that works. There we go. Thank you, Adi. All right, so now that our sign out is actually a button that we can use. Yeah, cool. So if I go to sign in, let's just search for sign in. I don't know where it is. Sign in. There we go. Hello. Yeah, so this button right here in login.js, we're just going to say login. And now we actually have a login button. There you go. So now I can log in again. And you see that everything's saved and our user, okay, we'll just save the link again then. All right. So now when I actually sync this calendar, I want to actually do something with it. So let's go to our list. And where's our sync? Sync. All right, so here's our button with our sync. And on click, I actually want to sync with Brightspace. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to create a function called like Brightspace sync or like BS sync or something, just because typing is hard. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go async function because we're going to actually make a request. And it's going to be BS sync. All right. So this function is going to actually make a call to our worker. And the way it's going to do it is it's going to create something called a fetch request. And fetch requests are automatically a part of JavaScript. So you don't actually need to install any sort of package for it or import anything. So we can say await and we can say fetch. And the fetch parameter, the fetch function takes in the actual URL itself. So this URL right here, which we passed in to worker link. So I can just say fetch this worker link. All right. And then obviously the worker link takes in the parameter right here. So we're actually going to pass in the parameters. So we're going to say worker link plus link. All right. And after we fetch it, let's just take a look at what this object actually is. So this object that's being returned is going to be like our assignments or like tasks. I'll just say that because I don't want to type that much. And we can say we have to convert this task, this request into a JSON format, which is actually in JavaScript as opposed to like a readable stream, which I believe is what it's called. Let's put this, let's say like const, let's actually assign this. So I'm going to say like const tasks equals, that's a terrible name. I apologize. BS tasks. There we go. Better. Okay. I'm just going to print it out for you just to see what it looks like. You don't need to follow along for like anything I do in terms of console logging. And if I go here, and I click sync calendar, I just want to show you what's actually in our console here. Okay, if I click sync calendar, it's going to take a second. and then it's going to actually return this object for us. All right. So now what we want to do is we actually want to add them to our calendar. So what does that entail? We want to go through this array of objects, and we want to save each one in our actual Firebase. So I can say BS tasks, and similar to the map function, right? JavaScript has a bunch of built-in functions for arrays, and there's also the for each function, which acts like a for loop, and this for loop takes in a function, which will be what we do to each, or what action we might want to perform with each individual element. Let's just say like our current task, right? So this is going to be the actual current value of whatever we're dealing with within our for loop. All right. What I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to create like a new array. So let's say let array equal whatever we have in our to-do list. And in my for loop, I'm going to add each individual element to this array. So if I look over at my submit function, you'll see that I have an object. I have actually setting it. So I'm just going to copy this really quickly. And I'm going to paste it right here. So let's take a look here, right? So our task is actually going to be this individual object right here. So what I want from it is I want the task.name for the title. So task.name is going to be our title, and our date is going to be this time. So this time is actually like the number of milliseconds since 1970. It's just like the way that we represent date objects in JavaScript. So I'm going to create a new date object because that's what we already passed into date. And for its parameter, I'm going to say the number of seconds, and it's going to convert it into a date object. So I'm going to say task.time. Is that correct? That is correct. Cool. All right. Are we all there? All right. So now I'm actually going to push this new object onto my array. So I'm going to say array.push, and it's going to add it to the very end of the array. And I'm going to add the object. And then at the very end, I'm actually going to update my to-do list. So I'm going to say set to-do into this array. So I'm going to create a new array, and I'm going to say, oh, geez. I'm going to put the array into this object. And this is something called like a hard copy. If you've ever wondered, like, why am I not doing array? Or why am I not just doing that? I actually need to make a hard copy in this instance because otherwise it won't recognize that that it's a new thing and it won't update my state for me. So let's see what happens. So if I actually sync my calendar now, it'll take a second, I hope. Yeah, and you'll see that all my tasks are here, right? And then if I refresh, they're all gone because obviously we haven't saved them yet. So here, we're actually going to save each individual item. If I'm not mistaken. All right, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our doc, and this doc is going to be within our DB, our collection name, and then it's going to contain, and its identification is going to be this new objects.id or object.id. So this object right here, its ID is going to be what we save. All right, and then we're actually going to pass in that object, not new object. I apologize. So our collection name, by the way, I think that's what's causing this problem. Yeah, this should be users, not tasks. Wait, hold on. I could be wrong with that. Would it be users or tasks? You know what? Let's just try it out. Let's see what happens. So if I go here, I sync my calendar, take a second, it loads them, and if I refresh, it's all there. Cool. Okay, so all right, so now I understand what has been happening. All right, so if you see right here, we have our tasks and we have our users. So tasks is what we did before when each individual, whenever you log in, you'll all see the same tasks no matter what. But what if I want tasks for each individual user? Like if I were to sign in on my project, I should not be able to see Adi's to do tasks. So essentially what we have to do is we have to give each individual user a list of tasks. So how we do that is by, let's see, if we go here, our collection name should not just be tasks anymore. It should be users / and then the actual ID of the user. And we're gonna do some ugly embed JavaScript and strings. And I forgot what this character is called, but it's in the top left of your computer. Backtick, thank you. Yeah, so if I say the user's UID, unique ID here, we're going from users, we're getting the unique ID, and we're creating a new collection that contains their tasks. So now what happens is if I log in with kevin.t.jin as opposed to kevin 2002, which is my other email, the tasks and the links will be completely different. Yeah, sure. So you'll see now everything's gone, right? So I can add a new task like ISD homework. I don't know why I'm still in ISD mine, but you know what? Sign out, log in. Let's go over to Kevjin, and you'll see that everything's gone. PL homework. Add, sign out, sign in. I'll go back to Kevjin. And you'll see that now the data is actually different for each individual person, thankfully. Cool. That makes a lot of sense as to why things were not working originally. All right, you want to do the unique stuff? I mean, I can do this. All right. Cool. So now we come across a problem. So if I actually sync this calendar really quickly, cool. If I actually sync calendar again, you'll see that more tasks arise. And the reason for that is because we didn't write any code to prevent that from happening, right? We're just essentially just creating these items every single time. So let's think about some of the logic here. So we create this for loop, we add this object, and then we set the doc to this new object. Does anyone have any idea of what we might do to make sure that we don't create a new object if the task name is the exact same? If statements, good times. All right, cool. Indeed. So we essentially want to do is we want to go through all the current tasks that we have in our to-do list. And if one of them is equal to this task.name, then we don't want to add it. So I'm going to create another for loop. This is a ON squared algorithm. So lead coders look away. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our to-do list and we're going to do a for each loop. All right. And essentially what I want to do is I want to create some sort of Boolean. So let's say like let found match or something equal false. And I'm going to iterate through this for each loop. And if I find the match, I'm going to set it to true. So we're going to have our for each loop. And once again, we're going to pass in the function. a lambda function, a nameless function. We're not giving this function a name. We're only using it once. So it's going to have an item. All right. And if this item's title, right? Because our to-do list contains individual objects with titles in them. So if this item.title is equal to our task name, then we want to say that we actually found the match and we don't want to add this new item. So found match equals true. I mean, sure, we could do if the item.title is equal to the task.name and item.date is equal to new date with the task.time, because these are two date objects we're comparing. Then we can say we found the match. Okay. So if I save this, now what I want to do is say, if I found the match, I want to ignore all this logic of pushing it to this array and actually saving it in the Firebase. So I can say if we didn't find a match, so if exclamation point found match, then we actually save this object. So I'm just going to put this all in the if statement. So if I save that, let me just clean this up. All right. So now if I were to actually sync my calendar, it'll take a while and it'll sync. There we go. And if I click again, it should not sync. Or oh, okay, never mind. Anyways, so why is that happening? Let's debug. Let's just go through this and just see what happens. You don't need to follow along with me here. I'm just going to debug stuff and kind of explain my thought process when it comes to debugging things. So if I were to actually print out each of these individual items, let's see what happens. Let's go here. Let's sync our calendar and we'll see each individual item print out. Okay, wait, that did not help me at all. I don't know why I did that. All right, let's just even see if this is happening. Okay, I want to check first if this is true. So let's just clean this up, sync it. So right now it's false, right? So it's not going to run that. But if I click again, interesting. It's running that function a lot. Oh, okay. Because it's actually running each individual time. Yeah. So if it finds a match, all right, we're setting it to true. So I think this date thing is causing a problem, and we'll figure out why. So now if I sync the calendar, it should not be true. Yeah, it's false all the time. Sure. Let's take a look at the difference between them. Okay. Sync the calendar. Let's see how atrocious we are. Okay. Yeah, let's say compare date objects JavaScript. Compare two dates. Let's see. New date, new date. They don't work. Yeah, equality operators don't work on date objects. So we have to say .getTime. So I'm going to say item.date.getTime. Let's just do that directly. So get time and then new date dot get time. All right, please work. Please. All right, let's make sure that this happens fine. All right, cool. If I sync again, cool. It loads and we don't get our old items. So yeah. Do you have time
We
or?
have 10 minutes, I think that we can do that.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So now you have your to-do list website. Congratulations. Now the problem is that only you can use it. We made all this capability to have different logins and different users and stuff. Right now it's only you. So we want to make it to where other people can use your cool and awesome website as well. So we're going to try to deploy it. The first thing we have to do here is there's going to be a slight difference depending on if you cloned this repo or if you forked it. If you forked the repo way back at the beginning of the first workshop, you do not have to worry about this part. But for all of you who cloned the repo, we're going to have to do something real quick. So we are going to, I want,
Wait,
oh, never mind.
what did you
Get-
want?
I wanted this.
Oh, my bad.
So I can see
I
all the
thought
window.
you
Anyway,
wanted
okay. So you're going to want to go, basically right now, you took the code that was up on our GitHub and pulled it to your machine, but it's still tied to our remote repository. So what you want to do is we want to make our own repository and tie it to that instead. So, okay, yeah. So first we're going to have to go to GitHub and we're going to have to make a new repository, one that you own that you can move everything over to. So we're going to go to GitHub, go to repositories, and then make a new one. We're going to do workshop deploy. And that is available. And just make sure deploy. Okay, deploy. And pretty much that's the only thing you should have to set is the name, and then you can create the repository. Great. And you're going to want to go ahead and copy this link that it gives you. Then we can go to the VS Code terminal. And what we're going to do, basically, instead of pointing at, our remote URL, we wanted to point it at the one we just got. So it is, let's see, how do I, Control Z, cool. Oh yeah. That's the right one? Yeah, okay. So then get remote set URL origin is going to be our command. So once you get this, then you can just copy and paste in the URL. And this is going to change it to pointing at your new Git repository. At that point, we're going to need to make sure we push up there so that our deployment can actually see what's going on there. Because right now it's just on your machine. So we're going to do get status to see what's going on. And we can see all of these files that we've modified. And to add them all at once, we can do get add dot. And then we can check the status again, just to make sure, yep, they've all been added. They're all green. Now we have to actually commit to tell them these are the files that we want to push. So do get commit and then /m will add a message and we can put whatever we want in our message and say, I love Kevin, and then hit enter. And now we've got a commit. Our last step is just git push. And this takes that commit that we just made on our local machine and pushes it to our new remote repository. Great. Now, if we go back to GitHub, refresh here, look at that. We have all of our code now in our own repository. Has everybody gotten to that point? Cool. Now, we're going to actually go to deploy it. So we're going to go to, just going to look up Netlify. It's going to be netlify.com. And you're going to want to sign up for an account. I'm just going to log in because Kevin already has an account. But I'm going to give you a minute to hit sign in and it'll walk you through the process of creating an account. It's pretty simple. It's just going to want to link with your GitHub. If you have any questions, raise your hand and we can help you out. Yeah. Just to note, there are lots of options for when you're deploying your website, what you can do. We picked this one because we have a very limited amount of time this workshop. This is very quick and easy to take a React repository on GitHub and just get it on the internet. But there's a ton of other ways you can do it. A really notable one is that you can actually deploy with Firebase. So the same thing that we've been using for the database, you can use that to deploy your website too, and just kind of keep everything within the same ecosystem. And it's a little bit beefier, made for maybe a bit larger projects, but it also works really, really well. And there's a ton of other options you can look into. All right, so I know not everybody quite has gotten into their account yet, but we have about 2 minutes left. So I'm just gonna go ahead and walk through this. And if you're logged in, you can follow along. And if not, just watch what I'm doing because it's very easy and you can replicate it later. So we're gonna go to add new site, import an existing project. We wanna do that from GitHub because that's where we have everything stored right now. It's gonna ask you to authorize, but you'll notice we don't have the repository that I've made right here. So we're gonna have to click this button here to configure the Netlify app on GitHub. It's going to take you to a page that looks like this. And you're gonna wanna, if you have any orgs that you're a part of, you wanna make sure you go to your personal GitHub because that's where we made the repo. I remember the word, but not the numbers. And we're gonna make sure that it has access to the repositories that we need. So right now it only has access to these two, but we wanna select another one. So I named this workshop deploy, if I remember correctly. Great, and we're gonna add that to the list of ones that it's allowed to access. We can hit save. Great, now we have workshop deploy. We can select that one. We're gonna have to select the branch to deploy. If you have multiple branches, you're gonna make sure you need to select the right one. But if you followed along, you should only have this main branch, and that's gonna be the one. And that should do it. And we can just go down here and hit deploy site. This will take a few minutes, but once this is all finished loading, it'll give you a URL and you can go to that URL. You can send it to anyone else. They can log in with their own Google accounts and everybody can use your fun little to-do list website. And now you have it. You have a real website on the internet. Good job, everyone.
Okay, so now that our to-do list is complete and we actually want to deploy it, I'm going to provide the actual correct method in terms of deploying it. So the first thing that you'll see is you have a package.json. And here you have, everything about your application. So you have the name, the version, that doesn't really matter. But if you were to improve the website, you could say 0.1.1 or 0.2 or whatever if you wanted. You have all these different dependencies here. So these are all the packages that we downloaded earlier. You'll see things like React Date Picker, Firebase, all these things. And then you'll also see, ignore those, we have scripts right here, right? So when we did npm start, we said npm start, and this would actually call React script start and it would start our application. But here, in this case, we want to build an optimized version of our application for production. And the reason we want to do this is if you look in node modules, you'll see that there are tons and tons of folders of all these things that we don't actually use. So this is hundreds and hundreds of megabytes that we actually never use. And also, it actually takes a while for our components to go from React into JavaScript to take this React component or even something like Google Auth Provider and go through the logic of actually taking that and converting it into pure JavaScript. So actually, if I were to build this application, it would minimize all of our JavaScript and all of our React and just create pure React. So let me show you that really quickly. So if I do npm run build, it'll take a second here, but it will quickly build this, build our application out, and you'll see that it creates this new build folder right here, right? So it has all of our assets, and soon it will also have the JavaScript we need. So if I go to static, you can see all these different JavaScript, which has been completely minimized and completely just pure JavaScript. All right, cool. So now that I actually have this build folder, what I can do is I can go into Netlify and I can go to add new site right here and I can say deploy manually. So the thing that Sam actually showed is deploying it using the command line. And for the purpose of our workshop, we're not going to do that. And also because different computers have different configurations. So actually installing a Netlify command line is actually going to be different for every computer. So for the sake of consistency, we're going to deploy it manually here, but I highly recommend in the future that you do it on the command line. I'll actually link article to that in the description of this video. So if I click deploy manually, you'll see that I can actually drag and drop your site. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to go in here, and then within my to-do list folder, I'm going to choose the build folder. So the thing with actually all the bundled JavaScript and HTML and all our assets. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to say upload. And it'll take a second here, but hopefully it deploys. Yeah, cool. Wow, that was really quick. So if I go to this website now and I click on it here, you'll see that, we have our application and it's at this link right here. And I can give this to a friend and they can log in through it. But you'll see actually that when I click login, you'll see that, for some reason, the window just automatically just disappears. And the reason for that, right, is going to be in the console. If I go here, you'll see that Firebase is unauthorized because of the domain. So Firebase has, and all APIs have various features. For instance, Firebase, you have to explicitly say where the authentication is coming from, which makes sense, right? You don't want someone to make some random application somewhere on the internet and be able to use your authentication. So with that being said, if I go to Firebase, I can go to my to-do list and I can go to authentication, the top left. And you'll see that I have sign-in methods, and I think usage, nope. Sign-in method, yeah. So right here is a list of all these authorized domains. So you'll see localhost, which is kind of what we developed on previously. You'll see to do this firebaseapp.com, which is kind of the thing that you redirect to when you log in. And yeah, so what we're going to want to do is we're going to actually want to take the link of our application right here, Deluxe Command Model or whatever your application will be. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to say add domain. And then I'm just going to paste that domain in there. If I do HTTPS, does it work? Huh. Oh, there you go. Just okay. There's probably some sort of bug. All right. So yeah, now you'll see that this domain is authorized. And if I switch over, you'll see that if I refresh the page, I should be able to log in. Yeah, cool. So I can log in. I can select my email, and you'll see that everything is still there like normal. So yeah. Now you actually have your website deployed. You can take this link, you can give it to other people, and they can also use your application too. If you actually want like a actual domain, Netlify has ways in which you can put your application on different domains. For instance, my personal website is on kevintj.com, and that's because I purchased that domain, and then I told Netlify that this is where I want to redirect. But because we're doing this for free, Netlify graciously created this domain for us that we can use. All right. With that being said, I think that is everything for this workshop. So yeah, I thank you guys so much for sticking through this, and it's been really exciting building this application. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to content through the content Discord. We definitely help you in terms of building new features or anything. And yeah, thank you guys.